presentation. I was working on the presentation, using the skills that I was learning. So I felt like this movie Inception. I don't know if you ever saw this Inception, where he puts this little top and he spins it. He's not sure if he's in the dream or out of the dream. So throughout the presentation, I was like, okay, I'm talking about the intro, but let's make the intro important. So it was a very interesting journey to create the presentation. My name is Nicole Williams. I am Marketing Communications Coordinator. I have to double check that. External Communications Coordinator for the marketing group. This is a photograph of me in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. I was praying for a Danos family, so I took this picture and sent it back to mail a few years back, and it was New Year's Eve. I carved ducks in my spare time, my hobby. This was my first one. Started carving with my nephew. After my father passed away, he was a little sad, and so we did this as an activity together. We carved one, and then he quit, and I kept going. It's been 4 years now, and I love it. We have a crawfish pond with our family. We do a lot of crawfishing January to about May. It's a lot of work. When the time changes, it's a whole lot better. This was a good day, crawfishing. And that's my one sister that I have. She's an elementary school teacher for 20 years. I went to South LaFouche High School, go Tarpons. Northwestern University, I graduated with a degree in advertising design and a minor in marketing. And it's also my grandmother's alumni, Orphan Beans. I've worked for 3 companies in my career, all family owned, interesting enough. AIM was safety advertising, so we did safety promotions for programs for large companies. Worked for Vision Communications, it was Latelco. First of all, the other thing too about AIM, it was the first VPP OSHA star site among promotional products. We used to promote these programs, and so part of that was us to become one of those. So we were the first one in the nation to do that. Vision Communications, interestingly enough, I didn't know this changed. We have a few Latelco people in here. Vision Communications was the first company in the nation to offer direct dial long distance calling on like a sales, on the sales end, not experimental. Very interesting. And then Danos here. I've been in marketing for 27 years. I've done about 61 trade shows throughout all of these different companies, and figured out roughly I've done 500 plus presentations. Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic now, fear. Let's take a stab at what do we think the top 10 common fears might be. Dental work, interesting. Snakes.
Spiders.
Clowns.
Spider clowns. Anybody else? Anybody else have some fears?
When somebody else might be sitting behind your back.
Oh, somebody spy on you.
Public speaking.
Public speaking, very good. So there are a variety of, there's all these different research items, and they all come up with about the same things. And here's the percentages, which I thought was really interesting. So confined spaces was 3%. Thunder and lightning, open spaces, flying in airplanes, social situations, heights, darkness, spiders, snakes, creepy things, death, and number 1, public speaking. On top of death, we are fearful of public speaking, which I think is fascinating. And that's at 19%. Presentation fact. So throughout the presentation, I'll give you a couple of little tips. If you add facts or figures to your presentation, it increases your audience retention by 20%. That's a pretty good number. So when you're giving presentations, you should try to add some facts and figures and have people think about it. The other thing I forgot to mention, you all have a handout on your desk in front of you. It has fill in the blanks. So as we go through, if you want to fill in the blanks, the answers on the slides, you're welcome to this slide presentation afterwards, of course, and we can answer any questions. Yeah, because we're probably already in 1 or 2 questions. Another interesting fact, fear of public speaking inhibits promotion to management by 15%. Think about all the times that managers have to speak to people or give presentations in front of folks. To have a fear of public speaking will inhibit you from management, and also will decrease your earning by about 10%. It's not to say that you get up and you get over your fear of public speaking and you will get a 10% increase in your salary here, but over the long term of your career, take that into consideration. So today, what I hope for you today is that you would take away a couple of tips that would increase your presentation skills, a couple of little tricks or techniques that would help you move forward. We're going to talk about how to create your presentation, how to engage with your audience, a couple of PowerPoint guidelines. We're also considering doing a PowerPoint, maybe 1 or 2 later on in the year, and then how to manage nervousness. And Lunch and Learn is scheduled for about an hour. We may finish a little early. So 5 traits of successful speakers. Number 1 is that they're authentic. They're believable. You understand what they say and you believe in what they're presenting. They should be confident, so they should study what you're presenting, prepare. Enthusiastic. You should be passionate about what you're talking about. If you're bored of what you're presenting, probably not the topic you should present on. Conversational. When you're doing a presentation, it should be a two-way conversation. So oftentimes I know our salespeople and our operations folks will go and meet with a customer. That is not just sending out information, we're also listening, so the conversation is important. And then also tell the audience what's in it for them. So they want to know, why am I here? What am I doing? Is it worth it to me? One thing that while we were researching, I thought this was an interesting dynamic or interesting approach to presentations, is that think of yourself as providing a service as opposed to I'm up here as an expert in the field talking to you about presentations. Think of it as, okay, now I'm just Nicole and I'm here to help you so that you can be better at delivering your gift and delivering whatever it is that you're going to do. So think of it as a service to folks. We're going to watch this video. I'm going to stop it a couple of times. It's a 2-minute video, so don't get too anxious. This was the first televised presidential debate. I think it was 1968, and it was between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. What we want to look at here is look at the 2 men, and we want to look at the appearance of them. Just right off the bat, what are some observations that you can make just by looking at this screen?
Kennedy's more relaxed.
You say Kennedy looks more relaxed.
Nixon was nervous. Yeah. And he doesn't stand out because he's the same color as the background.
Yeah, Renee just mentioned Nixon blends in with the background. Looks a little nervous, confident. All of this, we have just looked at this group of folks in 30 seconds and we've sized up their situation.
September 26, 1960, the first televised presidential debate. There were 75 million viewers. It was the defining moment when television began to dominate politics. Vice President Richard Nixon was convinced he could defeat his opponent, John F. Kennedy. But he would be judged not by what he said, but by how he looked.
Kennedy arrived tan, handsome. He was the personification of that guy. At one point, I looked at Nixon on camera, and he looked like Death Warrant.
When you add, I will cut to that camera so that the home audience is on the Kennedy camera and the home audience is the next one.
And I said to Kennedy, would you like some makeup? And he said, no, I don't want makeup. And Nixon overheard that. Nixon needed makeup. Kennedy didn't. So he said, gee, I don't think I want any makeup either. He needed it. Mr. Vice President,
Richard Nixon would never forget how the television camera destroyed his political dream.
had Nixon wore makeup that night, Now, that's a terrible thing to ponder, that a man running for President of the United States runs his ship aground over pancake makeup.
We are for programs in addition, which will see that our medical care for the aged is much better handled than it is at the present time.
Republican leadership has opposed federal aid for education, medical.
Heard his voice? Nixon's voice sounded a little more quiet. Kennedy's voice came through really strong.
Medical care for the aged. I think Mr. Nixon.
Kennedy's advisors learned a new commandment. Television image is the key to molding public opinion.
Ship the
The
eye.
majority of people who saw the debate, and I underline the word saw, believed Kennedy. But the majority of the people who heard the debate, hadn't seen it, thought Nixon had it. That showed the debate had, and Kennedy had a charismatic way of dealing with the public through television, and that's why, because when he became president, I went to him and said, look, you've got to have live televised press conference. Thank you.
All of that just to say that your appearance matters. So when you're going to give a presentation, you want to dress properly, you want to speak loudly, you may be representing Danos, you may be doing something a little more on the personal level, but people will size you up in 30 seconds, and they're going to cast a judgment, and depending on that judgment, unfortunately, you may have to overcome some obstacles that you didn't need to if you were dressed or appeared properly. Presentation fact. If the presenter does all the presenting and doesn't engage the audience, the opportunity to participate drops by 14%. So how your audience interprets your message. The majority of what people interpret is your facial expression, your eye contact, hand gestures, your posture, your dress, your appearance. That's 55% of your presentation right there. So if you look good and you sound loud, you got 55% of it down. The quality of your voice, the articulation, the volume. Make sure you're projecting, and the variation in your voice as well. And your content, 7%. You believe that? Most of what people will remember is how you made them feel. Of course, they're going to remember your content, but how you made them feel when they left. This also translates to the phone. So some of you communicate a lot in operations or in recruiting or front desk. You have a lot of phone conversations. So your voice is obviously a little more important at 84% with quality articulation volume, and then your words at 16%. Some of the tips that I've heard before were that you can maybe stand up while talking, and that it generates a little bit more energy in your voice. And you can also put a mirror there and kind of look at yourself, because you tend to smile when you're looking in the mirror or you're checking yourself out. And it's a little bit better than, you can see what's happening. So 6 body languages to avoid. Poor posture. I mean, how would it feel if we were giving the presentation, like this? Poor use of eye contact. So one of the things they want you to do is avoid like this kind of sweeping motion, which is very difficult in this room, I gotta tell you, like a tennis match, to look back and forth. Another thing to do that's good is to actually lock eyes with someone for 3 to 4 seconds. It's a little more personal. Avoid arms in a closed position. This is what they call a closed position. In trade shows, one of the things when you're walking down the aisle in a trade show, you're looking ahead. So I may stop and talk to somebody, but you're looking ahead. And if I see someone in a booth and they're standing like this, I'm not really excited about approaching that person. It's a closed off situation. Now if they're standing pretty open and ready to talk, I feel like they're ready to engage in a conversation and they're ready to have a conversation. So avoid keeping your arms in a closed position. If you feel like you want to protect yourself or cover yourself, one tip that I've heard was to put your middle finger and your thumb together. You kind of still have that closed feeling without having this going on. Standing in one place. I know we've seen millions of presentations like this. I mean, just think about it. While we're doing this, you're just staring at me here. By someone just moving around and getting out of the place, we're doing film here, so we're trying to stay inside. It just adds some activity and some action to the presentation. Excessive nervous energy, the clicking of the pencil. What else? Tapping. Some people tap. Tapping a foot. Anybody else think of some nervous energy things? Moving your hands maybe a lot. I would normally do that. And it's okay to have a moment of silence. Don't worry about the room always being filled with noise or talking. People need time to process what's going on. It might take you a minute to look here. You might start thinking about, oh, what are the nervous things I do? So don't be afraid of silence. And obviously, anything that makes you look distracted. If I started looking at my watch, you might start thinking, oh, she must have somewhere else to go. And I'm not so important here. I start checking my text messages. You might be wondering how my cat's doing at the vet right now. So creating your presentation. The first thing you want to do is create your hook to gain their attention. There's a couple of different hooks here that we're going to talk about. You don't need to use them all. You just pick the one that works best for your style of presentation and your audience. So you can start with a story. Maybe you tell a story about creating the presentation around the movie Inception. Probably not. Ask a question that's easy or relevant, not a difficult question. We don't want people to have to do a mathematical equation to figure out what you're trying to ask or what you're trying to find out. So make it simple. You can share a commonality. Maybe you tell them you're a tarpon, or you're into Northwestern State University, or you like duck carving and crawfishing. Give the listener a mental exercise. Right now, I want everybody to close your eyes for 1 minute. No, it's not gonna be a minute. And think about a speaker or someone who you enjoy listening to. Think about how they make you feel. Think about how they inspire you. Okay, you can open your eyes. That's a mental exercise. You can start with a prop or show and tell. Not really a prop kind of person, but I did think about borrowing the little spinner from Inception because Eric has one on his desk. But it was so small I didn't think you could see it. You can throw out a startling statement or a stat, like public speaking beats death in fear. Or people who have a fear of public speaking may earn 10% less over their career. You can start with things that are top of mind, so like Happy New Year, or you talk about the Oscars, nothing political or divisive or starting a intense conversation. And then you can maybe talk about this point in time. So if there's like a February, holidays coming up, Valentine's, maybe you talk about that or you refer to that. Those are all just little hooks or intros to get you started and get your audience warmed up. So introduce yourself in the beginning of a presentation. You want to set the agenda. Told you who I am. Explain the major points you cover. Remind your audience how long you'll speak. And then you will take questions at the end. We will take questions at the end. And promise a benefit. So if you remember in the beginning, we talked about my promise to you or why this presentation matters. And it's so that you can do better. So there's something called a 10-minute rule, and it's about shifting the energy in the room. This is Steve Ballmer. I don't know if you've ever seen this video. A leader from Microsoft. Hang on 1 second. And he has a pretty interesting way of changing the energy. You don't want him to
Oh, that's my style.
Oh my goodness, we're supposed to be ending right here. Do it? Oh, we have to relax on that. Of course. No,
He's gonna say, I need some oxygen.
Right, but I was gonna ask if you could stand up and show some love for web
Oh,
developers.
close. No. Why didn't I work? Jeez. I've been practicing this a lot too. So not everybody has that exact style to shift the energy in the room. Maybe David Grobwalk can pull that off. Mr. Hank, maybe you try that at your next talking engagement, speaking engagement. So here are a couple of other options in case that doesn't work for you. Maybe you can share a personal anecdote, talk about just a little story. A good case study is always good. People are interested in hearing what has worked before or what has not worked before. The audience interaction, so we might, ask a question or have you do a mental exercise, just something to move the activity. You might give a reaction. I was shocked to find out that X. Give a comparison or an analogy. So maybe if you're talking about operations, you can compare what you did last year to what you did this year. And then use some visual comparisons. Here are a couple of top 3 ways to persuade your listener to trust you. I thought this was an interesting little cartoon. So here's the guy, the age-old dilemma of do I eat the donut or do I not eat the donut? But as he walks up upon the donut, oh, it's a fundraiser for pandas. Well, in that case, I'm gonna eat the donut. So it's how to get the audience to trust you. First of all, if you're in front, this is a different audience. I know a lot of you. I've seen a lot of you. You may know me. But if you're in a place where you don't know who your audience is, maybe you mingle before the event. So you welcome people, ask them a little bit about themselves. I can tell you, Paul Danos is great at this, and he's got a photographic memory. I'm always amazed. But just have a conversation with people before, and then you may be able to weave that into your presentation. So you may hear about what people are going through, some of the troubles they might have, and obviously it's not difficult, but you maybe bring it up and use that in the presentation. Somehow you can explain your expertise. So I talked a little bit earlier about 500 presentations and 61 trade shows. You didn't have to be up here bragging about that, but in there you've kind of established who you are and that you're qualified to be where you are, talking about what you're talking about. And then you can create a scarcity or urgency. Who wants to not earn 10% more with fear of public speaking? So just kind of have people think about, you don't want to be the last one to the game. You might want to try this, or you might want to grow here, or you might want to move it. So managing nervousness. I know a lot of you sometimes compete in different athletic events, or you may talk. What are some things that go on inside of you before an event, either a speaking presentation or an athletic event? I'm looking for some audience participation here.
Practice.
Practice. But what are some things that are physically going on with you? Like,
Deep breath.
what's that? Anxiety. Sweating, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hot now. Or is it just me? Anything else? You might get jittery. What else? I've seen people turn red, like just totally haunt. That's embarrassed for those who are Cajun. If you're not from Donovan, that's embarrassed. So all being nervous just means you care. That's all. It's just that you have something going on, you want to do well, and you're anxious about that, whether it's performing an athletic event or giving a presentation. Adrenaline is what you feel, and that's what's happening. It's the same adrenaline that you feel when you get excited about us winning a great award or winning a contract. Same adrenaline that happens when you're nervous or you're afraid or you're scared. So you just have to get your mind straight on, I'm not nervous and I'm not scared, I'm just excited to be here. Part of it is our fight or flight, and it's how we're wired. We want to protect ourselves. Fear, whether it's real or perceived, it's still there. So, like I imagine you walking into a forest and you're thinking about, oh my God, there's a bear in here. Oh my God, there's a snake in here. And you have this adrenaline going, there's no bear and there's no snake, but the adrenaline's gone. So a couple of things you can do to kind of calm your nerves or to get rid of that is to move or walk around. You're just really burning the energy is what's happening. So take a little quick walk. James might rock. James, if you might get you're gonna walk around 6 times. You can do something called diaphragmatic breathing. Those of you who do yoga or exercise, this is how you diaphragmatic. This is how you do diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale, exhale.
Stomach.
So y'all go ahead and try it. Okay, inhale, hold it, exhale. Inhale, exhale. All right, very good. Another one is called progressive muscle relaxation. So we're gonna also try this. I'll have the little scrunchy face guy. So you're already sitting on a chair. Let's try squeezing the muscles in your face. Tighten them up and then loosen them. You might want to try with your arms now. And these things you don't have to do really obvious. So like if you're at a presentation and you're getting ready in the back, you just kind of tighten up your muscles in your legs and then release them. Or tighten up the muscles in your arms and release them. These are just easy little tips on how to get rid of that energy and that adrenaline that's flowing. So here's just a couple of PowerPoint guidelines, because I'm a PowerPoint maniac. So if you have to use text on slides, you do not have to capitalize each word of a bulleted list. That's just a general thing. And there's a way you can go into PowerPoint where the text is, and you can tell it to undo that by doing sentence case. Eliminate words that don't add meaning. So we don't need a ton of words. People get the idea. If they wanted to read a book, they would read a book. But they're here to kind of absorb who you are, and these are just guides for you as you're going through. And then keep it short and sweet. And by all means, lay off the animation. You can use a little bit, but not crazy stuff. In general, general guideline for slides is that you should have 6 lines of text, 6 words on each, no more than 36 words. It's like a mini billboard. Billboards, I think our 7 is our limit. You don't put more than 7 words on a billboard because that's all people can see. It's all right to let your slides breathe. Give them some room, some space. That way you're the focus and maybe not so much the slide. We know images are worth 1,000 words. I love this image. This image makes me nervous. There's so much going on. He already dropped his tape measure down at the bottom and somebody got hit. And everybody's fearful for his cat, let me tell you. So, does anybody have any questions? Or what questions do you have? No? How about your thoughts on this?
What's a trade show?
A trade show is a place where a bunch of different vendors go and set up, and then you just walk around. I don't know if you have I don't know, but you ever been to a recruiting fair or something like at Nichols?
We get all the vendors pulled together.
All the vendors. So some shows are small. They might have 12, 13 vendors. Some of them are geared towards recruiting. Some of them are geared towards selling services. But there's a lot of vendors, a lot of people walking around trying to discover new products and new ideas.
Was it like the safety event we had this year?
Similar. In fact, we somewhat modeled our safety focus after a mini trade show where people can walk around and learn a little bit. So imagine that with 5,000 vendors or 300 vendors.
Nicole, who you said eye contact? You said eyes blank at the end of the sentence. I'm assuming that.
Thank you. One of the things that we learned was as you're giving a talk, some people look at references or they're looking at paper, and when you finish a sentence, you should finish it here. And it's called landing the talk. I didn't really look down and I forgot about that. Appreciate it. So Adam, what are your thoughts? I see you have thoughts.
I'm just thinking. I took a marketing class in
college, and they went through like a lot of same stuff. And it was interesting. We had to do a big presentation at the end, in the Cox building. That was shooting this huge building, and we could only have 5 slides on our PowerPoint, and none of them could have words, and they had to be only pictures, and like one of them had to be a graph or a pie chart or something, like with some stats or some facts.
That's a great exercise.
And it was basically saying like, yeah, like you don't want a lot of words, like you're saying. Honestly.
And I think it's interesting when somebody challenges you with 5 slides, you gotta be pretty serious about what you're gonna say. Be very intentional, be very pointed, and you should do that when you do presentations. You should try to pare that down as much as you can. How about you, Scott? Your
Just
thoughts
thinking
are?
you're really good at this.
I can coach you up. Anybody else? Scott Terrier, what's your thoughts? I'm pointing you out because I've seen you grow. I mean, you may have been here longer than me, but I've seen you grow while you were here. And I can guarantee you the amount of presentations you have to give have increased. Is that right?
I think to your point earlier in your presentation, it's not something that comes natural, it is something you have to work at. If I remember back, I think in my presentation for the board, and I did a pretty poor job. It was my first time presenting in front of a group like that. I was really nervous. My nerves got the best of me. But I went to a class that helped, the training that helped with public speaking. There's a lot of things you talked about today. So it's something you have to work at. It's not something that overnight is just you're gonna wake up and be great at public speaking.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, so this presentation, we did one run, I did a dry run with Renee probably a couple of months, maybe 2 months ago. Then we did another dry run with our marketing team and got feedback. So, I mean, there was a lot of, and we had time to do this. Sometimes we're on a spot, a customer wants a presentation in 2 days, you know, we're compiling information, whatever. But if you have the time, you should certainly spend it to prepare, get everything together, because that's gonna kind of X out a lot of this stuff if you're prepared and you know what you're talking about. Anybody else before you move on?
Nicole, I I was at the presentation about presentations with Nicole about a year ago, so I heard some of this. But one of the things you said, I wrote down, I don't remember hearing it, but I really liked it. To have the mindset that you are providing a service to the people. A lot of times when I'm given a presentation, I'll have my notes prepared and I get into a story or a part of it and I'm thinking, oh, nobody really wants to hear this. And I can tell that the energy goes out of my own, my own presentation for that moment, and then sometimes I have trouble recovering. But I think if you just commit to saying, to mentally, you do the preparation so you know that what you put together is good, and then you just kind of put yourself in that mindset that somebody, probably a lot of somebody's in the room, need to hear this. It's going to help them. I think it's just that I really like that mindset of I have something to offer. It's going to help somebody. So it just puts you in the right frame of mind to present that well. I really like that.
I love that. That was not in the presentation. I just kind of stumbled across that. And on top of that, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, which I thought was fascinating. Very much on that same thing. The guy's a public speaker, a writer, and he said, "This is my gift. And I can own it or not own it, but this is my gift. And my gift was not for me. My gift is to give to others." And I thought, that's like taking that to a notch higher, which is pretty impressive. So whatever he was doing, he was selling a book, whatever, he wasn't selling the book, and he said he kept fighting with his ego on, I don't want to do this for money. I'm doing this as a gift to give back. And he said it's a big challenge to fight the ego and to just present who you are. So we're moving out of the reality into the presentation. That now you want to encourage discussion in the presentation. So, what Adam had to add may have added something to this presentation that was unexpected. The same thing with the other comments. If you do ask questions and you have some argumentative people, I have this on your handout. What you want to do is if someone's argumentative, you want to validate them and then redirect the question. So some examples of that may be, I can see why you think that, but here's another perspective. Another one might be, I understand where you're coming from, but my experience is different. We've heard that before, but we prefer to look at it this way. It's really just being diplomatic. If you don't know the answer, you should always try to end with a surplus. So for example, I don't know the answer, but I'll find that out and I'll get back to you. But what I can tell you is this. Another one is, since I don't have all the information, I can't answer you, but what I do know is, we leave them with a surplus. And because it's not my area of expertise, I'll refer you to X, because what I am sure of is that he can help you, or she can help you. And then the conclusion of the presentation, which is also the real conclusion of the presentation. You want to finish up your presentation with a summary of what you just talked about, or whatever it is that you're addressing in the presentation. Maybe circle back to the beginning. You want to create a call to action. I'll create a call to action right now. I'm hoping that after this presentation, some of you in here will feel either empowered to give a lunch and learn on your own, or you pick up a couple of techniques and tips that improve your presentation skills. You may end with a quote. That's all, folks. A personal pledge. My personal pledge to you is that if you do want to improve your presentation skills and you need some help, that I'll be willing to help you. Anyone in our marketing department for sure. We will certainly we can connect you with someone who can help you. We can review your presentation before you send it out, make it better. We have a review tool where we can actually do an observation and give you some feedback. So that's my personal pledge to you going forward here. And then aspiration, you can end with an aspiration or a challenge. The challenge is, I hope we get 2 lunch and learns out of this for the rest of the year. And that's all, folks.